Stop immediately. Before saying sorry again, you need to understand something that will change how you see respect, control, and the way people interact. Do you often apologize even when you've done nothing wrong? Are those words coming out just to keep the peace around you? Maybe you think apologizing makes you look mature, wise, or stronger in character. But if any of that feels familiar, then you're about to face a painful truth that's been holding you back all along. You've been led to believe that apologizing shows strength, that admitting blame makes people like you more, and that others will respect you for it. But in reality, each apology you give unnecessarily weakens your authority. It gives others silent permission to treat you as lesser. These apologies don't build connection, they quietly destroy your sense of control. Even centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli saw how rulers who kept apologizing eventually lost everything. He saw kind-hearted people crushed by those they kept apologizing to. He documented how that pattern repeats, even when no one wants to admit it. To understand how power truly works in silence and restraint, subscribe to Dark Psychology Decoded to stay informed. Throughout the forthcoming moments, you shall discover why your persistent expressions of regret render you transparent and unnoticed within social hierarchies. Others fail to honor your remorseful statements. Rather, they weaponize this weakness against you systematically. Most critically, you will comprehend methods to cease this apologetic behavior and begin commanding the genuine respect that rightfully belongs to you. This guidance does not advocate transforming into an emotionally devoid creature, nor does it suggest never recognizing genuine errors in judgment. What unfolds here demonstrates the distinction between calculated acknowledgement of responsibility and frantic submission, between accepting ownership of actions and relinquishing personal authority completely. The authentic truth remains that within a world where every individual battles for recognition and respect, apologizing without deliberate strategy resembles entering combat without protective covering. Destruction becomes inevitable. Acknowledge this declaration within your responses below. Authority resides within me. Starting at this precise instant, transformation commences. No longer will you offer apologies without conscious thought, fully understanding the genuine expense those two particular words extract. Recognizing when remaining silent possesses greater strength than expressing sorrow. Consider this initial devastating reality with extreme care and attention. Each solitary instance when those apologetic words escape your lips, something essential within you experiences termination. Your commanding presence, your vital energy, your fundamental right to occupy space undergoes erasure. You convince yourself that politeness drives this behavior, that consideration for others motivates these words. Yet the actual occurrence involves systematically deleting yourself from every environment you enter. Observe the physical transformation that accompanies each apology expressed aloud. Your vertebral column bends forward unnaturally. Your thoracic cavity compresses toward its center. Your vocal projection diminishes to barely audible levels, and your visual focus escapes from whomever receives your words. You physically contract in size, and this transformation extends beyond mere corporeal changes. Your essence withdraws. Your influence evaporates into nothingness, and you communicate to the universe that deserving this space seems questionable. The universe receives this message clearly, as do all surrounding individuals who witness this shrinking. They observe you disappearing directly before their eyes. Treating you precisely as someone undergoing disappearance deserves treatment, as someone lacking significance, someone easily dismissed, ignored, and ultimately erased from consideration. Invisibility becomes your condition not through quietness or diminutive stature, but through continuously apologizing for your very existence, constantly expressing sorrow for consuming the same atmospheric oxygen as everyone else, perpetually requesting permission to occupy territory that already belongs to you by right. The world overflows with individuals attempting to expand their territorial claims, pushing outward aggressively, declaring dominion over space. Each apologetic utterance functions as surrendering your territory voluntarily, transferring your space to others, declaring that deserving it never existed within your rights anyway. You question why others walk across you without hesitation. You positioned yourself horizontally and demonstrated exactly where their feet should land. You wonder why your perspectives carry no weight in discussions. You apologized for possessing them before articulation even occurred. You puzzle over why nobody regards you with seriousness. You demonstrated that self-regard escapes your own capabilities. Your continuous apologetic pattern broadcasts a signal comparable to emergency flares screaming declarations of vulnerability, weakness, and inferiority. inviting domination from anyone perceiving it. Individuals respond to this broadcast not through inherent maliciousness, but because authority operates according to specific principles. Authority flows toward those who seize it and retreats from those who surrender it voluntarily. Every apologetic statement represents capitulation. Every expression of sorrow waves surrender flags. And every instance of backing down trains surrounding individuals that you consistently retreat under pressure. You fail to construct relationships through this behavior. Instead, you build a reputation as someone easily conquered, someone who invariably yields, someone whose presence remains entirely optional in any situation. Machiavelli articulated centuries ago that when forced to choose between affection and fear, being feared provides far superior safety compared to being loved. Your apologetic attempts seek affection and acceptance, trying to make others comfortable with your presence. Yet the actual result transforms you into someone forgettable, erasable, and irrelevant to others' realities. When you command fear, not terror, but respect, your existence registers in others' consciousness permanently. You matter significantly, your presence creates lasting impressions, and individuals think carefully before dismissing you from consideration. They pause before interrupting your speech and consider your position before making decisions that affect you. This represents what you sacrifice with each unnecessary apologetic expression, your fundamental existence within other people's perception of reality. Cease apologizing for occupying space in this world. You possess identical rights to this space, this atmosphere, this moment as any other person walking the earth. Perhaps even superior rights because you refrain from attempting to steal others' authority through exploiting their apologies. Declare this affirmation publicly. Territorial space belongs to me. Here exists something that will shake your fundamental understanding to its core. When apologetic words reach someone's ears, you fail to satisfy their need for closure or resolution. Instead, you ignite an insatiable hunger within them, a desperate craving for additional submissions from you. Envision this scenario carefully. You hand someone their first taste of the most addictive substance existing on Earth, authority over another human being. That initial apology represents their first dose, and like any first dose of addictive material, it opens a door that can never close completely again. Their neurological chemistry literally transforms when you submit through apology. When you lower yourself beneath them, their brain releases dopamine, they experience elevation, they feel superior, they sense victory. Winning produces incredible sensations, and now their brain demands to experience that feeling repeatedly and continuously. You have activated their reward system, and theoretically you control the supply, except you do not control it whatsoever. It controls you completely. Now they will manufacture reasons requiring your apology, becoming hypersensitive to everything you do or say, discovering offense in locations where none genuinely exists. Why does this occur? Because they chase that feeling, that rush of dominance, that hit of superiority coursing through their system. You have transformed them into addicts, and you serve as their drug of choice. Observe what transpires in your life carefully. The individuals receiving your apologies most frequently become the individuals most offended by you most often. This pattern is not coincidental. It represents conditioning and behavioral programming. You have trained their brain that being upset with you leads to the reward of your submission, and they do not even realize this process occurs consciously. Their conscious mind believes they possess legitimate complaints and grievances, but their unconscious mind runs a program. Get upset with this person. They apologize. I feel powerful. Let us repeat this pattern. You are caught in a feedback loop designed to drain every drop of influence from your body and transfer it to theirs systematically. Every apology makes them stronger while making you weaker. Every expression of sorrow is a transaction where you lose and they gain. Here is the part that will destroy you if you do not awaken immediately. This hunger never experiences satisfaction. Never. You cannot apologize enough times to finally fill them up. You cannot submit hard enough to finally make them content, because satisfaction would mean the end of the supply, and addicts never want the supply to end. So they will keep pushing, keep finding new things to be hurt by, keep discovering new reasons why you need to apologize, keep raising the bar of what is required from you. One apology becomes two becomes five becomes a lifestyle where you are constantly apologizing for your very existence because they have become so dependent on that feeling of power over you that they cannot function without it. You believe you are maintaining peace and being the mature person. You think you are preserving the connection, but you are not. You are feeding a monster that grows larger with every apology, and eventually that monster will consume you entirely. The cruelest part manifests when they blame you as it all falls apart, stating that you are always apologizing. Clearly, you have so many problems, and they cannot deal with someone who is constantly messing up. You created the pattern through your submission, and now they are using that pattern as evidence that you are the broken one. Machiavelli stated that men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that he who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. You are deceiving yourself, thinking your apologies are solving problems, but they are creating dependencies, building addictions, establishing power dynamics that will haunt you for as long as you allow them to exist. The only way to break this cycle is to stop feeding it, stop giving them their fix, stop providing the supply. Let them experience what it is like when you do not apologize. Let them go through the withdrawal. Yes, they will escalate. Yes, they will get angry. Yes, they will try everything to get you back into the pattern because addicts fight hard when you take away their drug. But you are not responsible for their addiction. You are only responsible for stopping your role as the supplier. Declare this affirmation: weakness starves in my presence. Your apologies do not disappear into thin air after you speak them into existence. They get carved into stone, becoming permanent entries in a record that will be used against you for the rest of your life. Every time those apologetic words emerge, you are creating a file in everyone's memory, and that file is titled Evidence of Failure and Incompetence. Understand how human memory actually functions in reality. It does not record events accurately like a camera. It creates narratives and builds stories. Your apologies are writing the worst possible story about who you are as a person. You apologize once for being late, and the memory created is not that they apologized for being late. The memory formed is that they are unreliable. You apologize for a mistake at work, and the memory is not that they acknowledged an error. The memory becomes they are incompetent. You apologize for saying something that upset someone, and the memory is not that they were considerate. The memory formed is that they are problematic. Each apology is a data point, and humans are pattern recognition machines that take those data points and create patterns. The pattern your apologies create is this: this person is consistently failing. It does not matter that you apologized once for being late and were on time 100 other times. That one apology outweighs the 100 successes because apologies are emotionally charged. They stick in memory. They matter disproportionately, and they create lasting impressions that overshadow everything else. Meanwhile, there exists someone else who was late 10 times and never apologized. And what pattern does everyone see for them? They are busy, they are important, they have a lot going on. You apologized once, they never apologized. You are the unreliable one, they are the important one. That is the twisted logic of human perception, shaped by apologies and power dynamics. But the situation deteriorates far worse than this. These memories do not stay separate and isolated. They combine, they merge, they create a compound narrative that is bigger than the sum of its parts. Your apology for being late combines with your apology for a work error, combines with your apology for the thing you said. And now you are not just someone who was late once or made one mistake. You are someone who is always apologizing. And someone who is always apologizing must be someone who is always doing something wrong. Your individual apologies for small, unrelated things create a massive, overarching identity. The person who messes up. That becomes your brand. That becomes how people introduce you in their minds. That becomes the filter through which every action you take is interpreted. Do something good? Well, they are trying to make up for all their mistakes. Do something neutral? Probably going to mess it up eventually. Do something questionable. See, there they go again. Your apologies have created a confirmation bias where everything you do confirms the narrative that you are problematic. Here is the most devastating part. This record is permanent. Years later, people will still remember you as that person who was always apologizing. They will not remember what you apologized for specifically. They will just remember the feeling of you constantly submitting. You will try to change. You will stop apologizing. You will stand strong, but that recorded history follows you. Nevertheless, they will push back against your transformation precisely because the documented history declares you lack fortitude and resilience. The archived evidence insists you represent someone who consistently retreats when confronted with resistance. The historical ledger identifies you as the individual who perpetually expresses remorse without hesitation. Shattering that established perception approaches near impossibility because you dedicated extensive time constructing it meticulously. You invested prolonged periods feeding information into the folder labeled verification of inadequacy. Conversely, individuals who refuse to express regret maintain an entirely different archive in others' consciousness. Even when they experience failure, even when their actions prove incorrect, even when circumstances demand they acknowledge wrongdoing, they abstain from doing so. Consequently, what documentation gets established in their favor? Assured, powerful, refuses to surrender ground. They encounter identical failures you experience, potentially more numerous, yet they never formalized them through apologetic statements. Therefore, their record remains unblemished while yours displays countless crimson indicators of fault. Machiavelli articulated centuries prior that everyone observes what you seem to be, while few actually experience your authentic nature. Your apologetic expressions make you seem perpetually defective in character. That superficial appearance transforms into your reality within everyone's perception. The actual truth of your character becomes irrelevant. What matters exclusively is what your apologetic history has documented you to represent. From this precise instant onward, comprehend that every apologetic utterance achieves permanence in memory. Every expression of sorrow gets archived eternally without expiration. Every act of submission receives documentation in a record that will pursue you indefinitely. Do you genuinely desire to append another entry to that damaging record, or have you finally reached readiness to cease constructing the case against your own interests? You must comprehend something fundamental regarding human psychological functioning and patterns. Individuals perpetually search for locations to deposit blame and responsibility when circumstances deteriorate. When situations go awry, everyone's cognitive system automatically initiates scanning procedures for an appropriate target to hold accountable. Your apologetic patterns have painted a massive target symbol directly on your back for all to aim at. Here exists the operational mechanism of this dynamic. The instant you apologize for anything whatsoever, regardless of magnitude or relevance, you establish yourself as the category of person who accepts accountability, who absorbs blame willingly, who confesses fault without resistance. That sounds admirable and noble until you recognize what you have actually accomplished through this pattern. You have volunteered yourself to serve as everyone's designated scapegoat in every situation. You have elevated your hand and declared loudly that you represent the individual they can blame whenever things go wrong in any context. And individuals will accept your offer continuously, remorselessly, and permanently without hesitation. Something fractures or breaks? Must certainly be your responsibility. You apologize for things constantly. Remember that pattern everyone has observed. A project experiences failure? Probably traces back to your fault since you are the one who perpetually takes responsibility without question, correct? Someone experiences upset or distress. You should apologize immediately because that represents your established behavioral pattern, does it not? You have created a gravitational force field where all blame within your proximity gets pulled inexorably toward you. You function as a black hole of accountability, vacuuming in responsibility for actions you did not commit, could not control, and should not be held accountable for under any reasonable assessment. But because you have established the consistent pattern of apologizing, everyone's default assumption concludes that you represent the problem's source. Because if you were not the problem, why would you perpetually be apologizing for everything that occurs? The reasoning operates backwards, yet this represents how human cognition processes information about others. Causation and correlation become confused and intermingled in people's minds. You apologize frequently and problems exist simultaneously. Therefore, you must be causing the problems according to their flawed logic. Observe what transpires when something goes wrong within a group environment or team setting. Everyone's eyes will pivot toward you immediately as the likely culprit. Not necessarily because they possess knowledge that you committed the error, but because you represent the safe target, the reliable target, the target who will not fight back defensively because they remain too preoccupied apologizing. You have made yourself the path of least resistance for blame assignment. And blame, similar to water flowing downhill, always flows down the easiest available path toward the lowest point. Meanwhile, others have learned the opposite lesson through observation and experience. They have learned that if they never apologize, they cannot be blamed for failures. If they never admit fault openly, people will assume they are not at fault whatsoever. So when problems arise suddenly, they stay silent and observe. They let the room fill with uncomfortable tension that nobody wants to address. They wait patiently for someone to break the silence, and who breaks it every single time? You, with an apology, even if you had absolutely nothing to do with the situation. You are trying to be helpful and constructive. You are trying to move things forward productively. You are trying to resolve the tension that makes everyone uncomfortable. But what you are actually accomplishing is volunteering yourself to be executed for crimes you did not commit. Here exists the cruelest twist in this dynamic. The more you absorb blame, the more you are expected to absorb it in the future. Your established pattern of apologizing creates an expectation that you will always apologize regardless of circumstances. So when you do not apologize for something, people experience anger and confusion. Why are you not apologizing now? You represent the one who usually apologizes for everything. What differs in this situation? Are you claiming this is not your fault for once? Affirmative, that represents exactly what you are claiming. But good luck convincing them, because you have spent so long being the designated blame absorber that any attempt to stop is seen as shirking responsibility and avoiding accountability. You have built a prison cell with your own apologetic statements, and now everyone expects you to stay confined in it permanently. The people around you have become dependent on your willingness to be blamed for everything. It makes their lives easier and more comfortable. It gives them someone to point at when things go wrong. It absolves them of having to look at their own contributions to problems. You are providing a service as professional scapegoat, and they will fight to keep you in that role because losing you means they might have to take responsibility themselves. And they have forgotten how to do that because you have been doing it for them consistently. Machiavelli stated that the promise given was a necessity of the past, while the word broken is a necessity of the present. Your past apologies have created promises about who you are and what role you play in group dynamics. Breaking those promises and refusing to be the scapegoat anymore is the necessity of your present moment. People will not like it. They will resist. They will try to push you back into your familiar role. They will accuse you of changing, of not caring, of being selfish and inconsiderate. Let them make those accusations without allowing them to affect your resolve. Their discomfort is not your responsibility to manage. Their need for a scapegoat is not your burden to carry. You are done being the magnet for everyone's blame. You are done accepting responsibility for things that are not yours. You are done apologizing just to fill the silence when something goes wrong. Let the silence sit heavily in the room. Let others squirm in it uncomfortably. Let them experience what it is like when there is no convenient target to blame. Let them discover that maybe, just possibly, they are the ones who need to apologize for their own failures. Currently, confronting something dark becomes necessary, something most individuals refuse to see because it shatters their belief in human goodness and trustworthiness. When you apologize and someone responds by saying they forgive you, they are setting a trap, and you just walked right into it without recognizing the danger. Real forgiveness is rare, requiring effort, grace, and genuine letting go of resentment. What most people do when they accept your apology is something entirely different and more sinister. They are filing it away carefully. They are storing it securely. They are saving it for later use against you. Your apology just became ammunition, and they are going to use it against you the moment it becomes convenient or advantageous. The statement that they forgive you does not mean the slate is clean or the issue is resolved. It means the slate has been copied, filed, and stored in a vault labeled things to bring up when they need to win arguments. You think you are resolving conflict constructively, but you are actually creating future weapons for them to use against you strategically. Weeks pass, months pass, maybe years elapse, and you think the issue is dead and buried permanently. But it is not dead at all. It is hibernating, waiting for the perfect moment to resurrect and attack you. Then one day you are in a disagreement, a new completely unrelated disagreement about something different. And suddenly they say, "Remember when you apologized for that thing years ago?" They are starting to see a pattern here in your behavior. Wait, what is happening? That was resolved completely? You apologized? They forgave you? It is over, right? Wrong entirely. It was never over. It was just waiting dormant. Your apology did not close the issue permanently. It documented it officially. It made it official record. It gave them a time-stamped, verified record of your failure that they can reference whenever they need to put you in your place or establish dominance. Doing. When. This is the forgiveness trap in its most devastating form. You think apologizing brings peace and resolution, but it brings an armed truce at best. Peace with a weapon pointed directly at your head. Peace that lasts exactly as long as they choose not to pull the trigger. And they will pull that trigger eventually when circumstances benefit them, when they need to win an argument, when they need to make themselves feel superior, when they need to justify their behavior by pointing to your past mistakes. Out come your old apologies like zombies rising from graves. Dead issues that you thought were buried forever suddenly shambling back to life to devour you. You apologized for doing that before, so clearly you have not changed at all. They forgave you once, but here you are again making similar mistakes. You promised you would not do this when you apologized. Remember that promise? Your attempts to be accountable become proof that you are perpetually failing. Your acknowledgments of past mistakes become evidence that you are incapable of growth or improvement. Your apologies become chains that bind you to your worst moments forever without escape. Meanwhile, the person who never apologizes faces none of this accumulated burden. They have no ammunition stored against them in anyone's memory. They have no documented failures on record. They have no verified records of wrongdoing. When conflict comes their way, they face it with a clean slate. You face it dragging the weight of every apology you ever made throughout your entire life. Here is the part that will truly disturb you when you fully comprehend it. Some people actively seek your apologies not because they want closure or resolution, but because they want weapons to use later. They push you to apologize specifically so they have something to use against you in future conflicts. They collect your apologies like trading cards, and the more they have, the more power they hold over you indefinitely. Your submission becomes their arsenal of weapons. The sickest part involves them smiling while they do this to you. They will act gracious when they forgive you. They will play the role of the bigger person who is so kind to accept your apology. But behind that smile, they are calculating how and when to use it against you most effectively. This represents human nature at its most calculating and manipulative. Not everyone does this consciously with awareness, but the pattern exists because it works effectively. Collecting apologies from someone gives you power over them, and humans crave power naturally. Machiavelli stated that men ought either to be well treated or crushed because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, while of more serious ones they cannot. Your apologies are lighter injuries to yourself, light enough that you survive them, light enough that you keep making them, but they accumulate over time. They add up systematically, they build a case against you that will eventually crush you. Either stop apologizing entirely or understand that every apology is ammunition being handed to someone who may one day use it to destroy you completely. The choice is yours alone to make, but make no mistake about what you are choosing. There exists something happening inside you that you might not even notice consciously, something that has been dying slowly with every apology you make over time. Your inner fire, your core strength, your fundamental belief that you deserve to exist without permission from others. Every time you apologize unnecessarily, you are not just affecting external perceptions of others. You are rewriting your internal programming at a fundamental level. You are teaching your brain a devastating lesson that becomes ingrained. The message is clear: inadequacy defines me. Your brain is listening to everything you say, especially what you say about yourself and your worth. When you constantly apologize, your brain hears declarations that you are wrong, you are faulty, you are the problem, you are not worthy of respect. Hear that message enough times and it becomes your identity. It becomes the foundation of how you see yourself. It becomes the truth you live inside of daily. Watch what happens to you over time as this pattern deepens. You start second-guessing every word before you speak it aloud, wondering, should I say this? Maybe avoiding it would be better since you will probably just have to apologize for it anyway. You start questioning every decision before you make it, wondering, should I do this? Maybe not doing it would be safer since you will probably mess it up and need to apologize afterward. You start doubting every choice, every movement, every breath because your constant apologizing has convinced your brain that you are someone who is constantly wrong about everything. Your inner fire, that spark of certainty, that core of confidence, that flame of self-belief, starts to flicker weakly, then dim significantly, then die completely. Once that fire is extinguished, what remains in its place? A hollow shell of who you once were. Someone who moves through life asking permission for everything. Someone who apologizes for breathing air. Someone who has forgotten they ever had the right to stand tall with dignity. You become a ghost in your own life, present but not really there, existing but not really living, speaking but not really being heard by anyone. Because you have apologized yourself into nothingness, you have submitted yourself into irrelevance, you have shrunk yourself so small that you have almost disappeared entirely. The reality remains that confidence is not something you can fake convincingly. Real confidence comes from an internal knowing that you deserve to be here, that your thoughts matter significantly, that your presence has value. Every apology chips away at that knowing systematically. Every expression of sorrow is a vote against yourself. Every submission is you telling your soul that you do not matter. Cast enough of those votes and your soul starts to believe it. Your inner fire starts to accept that maybe you really do not deserve to burn bright. Maybe you really should stay small and invisible forever. Perhaps your destiny involves being trampled underfoot repeatedly throughout your existence. This represents the method through which individuals dismantle themselves systematically, not through one catastrophic traumatic event, but through countless microscopic acts of surrender occurring over extended periods, through years upon years of expressing regret for merely occupying space on this planet, through decades of compressing themselves into increasingly smaller versions to ensure others feel comfortable in their presence. The most devastating aspect of this entire process reveals itself when your internal flame expires completely. Reigniting that extinguished fire approaches near impossibility because you have dedicated such prolonged duration suffocating it systematically that you have lost all memory of how burning brightly once felt within your spirit. You observe individuals who maintain upright posture, who articulate thoughts with absolute certainty, who demand respect through their mere presence. And you convince yourself that such behavior simply does not align with your identity. You declare internally that such commanding presence is not who you are fundamentally. However, you absolutely are that person. Or more accurately, you were that person before you apologized away every fragment of that strength, before you submitted it into complete silence, before you shrank it into absolute nothingness through continuous capitulation. Machiavelli articulated centuries ago that where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great in comparison. Your willingness to express remorse has been monumentally great, and it has rendered your life difficult, painful, and diminutively small. Nevertheless, your willingness possesses the capacity to change directions entirely. It must change because continuing on this current trajectory leads to a death that occurs while you remain breathing, while your heart continues beating, while you technically exist, but do not truly live. Commencing at this precise instant, protecting your internal flame like your survival depends upon it becomes absolutely necessary, because your survival genuinely does depend upon it in every meaningful way. That flame represents what makes you authentically yourself. That fire provides you with the strength to stand upright, to articulate thoughts, to exist with genuine purpose and meaning. Cease pouring water upon it through your apologetic statements. Stop suffocating it through your submissions. Stop killing it through your constant retreating and backing down. Feed it instead with deliberate nourishment. Feed it with moments where you stand firm without wavering. Feed it with words spoken without apologetic qualifications. Feed it with decisions made without requesting permission from others. Feed it with existence that does not ask for forgiveness simply for being. Let it grow larger and stronger. Let it burn brilliantly. Let it remind you what feeling alive actually feels like, not merely apologizing for being alive. Everything previously discussed leads to this final truth with absolute clarity. The most powerful response frequently involves no response whatsoever. You have been taught systematically that silence represents weakness, that refusing to apologize means you possess stubbornness or cruelty, that saying nothing means you do not care about others. All lies designed specifically to keep you apologizing perpetually, designed to keep you small and manageable. Real power lives within strategic silence, in knowing when to speak and when to let the void do the work for you. When something goes wrong, your first instinct is to fill the awkward space with an apology, to smooth things over, to make everyone comfortable. However, that discomfort, that awkwardness, that tension does not belong to you to fix. Let it sit heavily. Let others squirm in it uncomfortably. Let them experience what it feels like when there is no easy target apologizing to make it all go away. Silence functions as a mirror, reflecting back onto those who encounter it. When you stay silent instead of apologizing, people are forced to look at themselves, to examine their own role in the situation, to sit with their own discomfort. Most people cannot handle that level of self-examination. They will try to make you fill the silence. They will pressure you to apologize. They will create more tension to force your submission, Hold your ground firmly. Let the silence expand outward. Let it become unbearable for them, not for you. Eventually someone else will speak. Someone else will take responsibility. Someone else will apologize. In that moment, the power dynamic shifts dramatically. You are no longer the designated blame taker. Someone else just volunteered for that role. Or even better, the silence forces everyone to move forward without needing an apology at all, without needing a scapegoat, without needing someone to submit. The issue gets addressed through action instead of through your degradation. Strategic silence is power because it refuses to play the game according to established rules. It does not give people what they have been conditioned to expect from you. It breaks the pattern. It forces a reset. When you would normally apologize, say nothing. When you would normally explain yourself defensively, say nothing. When you would normally defend your position, say nothing. Just hold space, just exist without apologizing for existing. This will make people uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. They are used to your apologies. They are used to you filling the void. They are used to you making things easy for them. Your silence disrupts everything they expect. Excellent. Let them be disrupted. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them discover that you are not going to play your assigned role anymore. Here exists the critical distinction that must be understood completely. Strategic silence is not passive avoidance. It is not running away from confrontation. It is active. It is deliberate. It is you choosing not to surrender your power through unnecessary words. When acknowledgement is truly needed, you can give it brief, clear, forward-focused. Here's what happened. Here's what is next. No apology, no groveling, no submission, just facts and movement. Most situations do not even need that level of explanation. Most situations just need you to stop apologizing and let reality unfold without your constant interference. Machiavelli stated that the wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The fool apologizes constantly, realizes too late it destroyed them, and finally stops. The wise person understands from the beginning that strategic silence holds more power than desperate apologies. Be wise. Stop filling every awkward moment with submission. Stop smoothing over every rough edge with apologies. Stop making yourself small to make others comfortable. Stand in your silence. Stand in your power. Stand in the certainty that you do not owe anyone an apology for existing, for being human, for making normal mistakes, for taking up space. Your silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is strength. It is you finally understanding that some voids are not yours to fill. Everything has led to this moment where you choose who you are going to be from now on. You have seen the brutal cost of constant apologizing, how it kills your presence, how it creates hunger in others for your submission, how it builds a permanent record against you, how it makes you a magnet for blame, how it traps you in fake forgiveness, how it extinguishes your inner fire. The question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge now that you possess it?